challenging times of our lives. As an artist collaboration, we've given shape and depth to some of the most complicated topics of our time, making them easily accessible for those who seek to understand. We've given voice and space to the stories that often go ignored. Please take a moment to consider being a patron, make a donation, or join Rockfin. Thank you. Well, it helps if we're on.
Hi guys, how are you?
Hello, good morning. Welcome to another edition of Pullquote.
This is another edition of Pullquote. We're bringing Lynne Taylor back. We've had her on twice before, and for those of you who don't know, Lynne is a writer and activist who focuses her attention on education, especially in the areas of Common Core education and the negative effects on children and society at large. In 2012, Lynne helped co establish Preserving Integrity and Excellence in Education, otherwise known as PI, North Carolina. She is a retired private homeschool teacher and a board member for Heart for Homeschoolers. She has been awarded the 2011 Distinguished Educator from the National Society of High School Scholars, as well as the 2016 LMB Network's Torchbearer Award for Educational Advocacy. Lynne has appeared several times before the North Carolina General Assembly in efforts to preserve freedom in education. She is a contributor to Practical Homeschooling Magazine, a researcher and writer for Prevent Common Core and the Patriot Institute, and regularly posts on her own blog, Common Core Diva. Lynne has also been a featured speaker at meetings and conferences and is a frequent guest on nationwide radio and podcast programs and has her own channel, Breaking News Journal TV, which is available on Amazon and Roku.
All right,
Welcome,
wow.
Lynne.
Hi.
Welcome
Thank
back.
you. Thank you so much. And I wanted to add that every Wednesday morning, bright and early at 6 o'clock in the morning, Sons of Liberty, we devote an hour to what's called the Rotten to the Core Wednesday, where we talk about nothing but the demise of education.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we
So
have,
I've been up for a long time today.
yes, I'm
Yeah.
sure
Well,
you,
I remember last time we talked,
yeah,
you'd also done that call.
Yeah,
yeah.
well, we talked about global education bills from our Congress today. So I'll be sure and send you guys the archive link for that because it will tie into what we're going to talk about today.
Okay.
Good.
Well,
Okay.
let me show folks your website real quick before
Sure,
we
Really
start.
quickly. Yeah.
Yeah.
sure.
So, okay. So this is uh, Lynn's website, Common Core Diva, and that's commoncorediva.com. Okay. So pretty easy. And, it's spelled just like what it says there, except without the spaces. Okay.
That's right.
And
Hmm.
so you've got. I notice you have a new phrase, a new word on your site, the educratic.
Wow.
Oh, I love that word. That's one I've used for a long time to describe those people who are either in legislative authoritative positions of any sort, who either have sold out to the Common Core machine or who have zero education background.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds good.
Yep. I tagged them well, didn't I?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think we're seeing the same thing in health and other
Mm-hmm.
areas.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when these things intersect with the government or public policy of some kind.
Right.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. We know that, the three major institutions that are going to be reshaped in the fourth industrial revolution are housing, education, and of course, the medical industry. There may be more, but we love that you have, concentrated all of your efforts on the education aspect of this. What I would like to do
Mm-hmm.
is talk to you about, on the local level here, especially in Pittsburgh,
Mm-hmm.
given that it is really proud of the fact that there will be, nothing but STEM or STEAM jobs available in the future, second none to San Francisco. Uh, I would like to talk to you about why that's a bad thing. I mean, I try to talk to people locally about how that's not great, but I don't have the, the background and the language that you have. Let's show the
Okay.
poster of our local library. What is your opinion on this?
Well, when you see a sign that says Remake Learning, all right, there's a huge push from both the Democrats and the Republicans that's been going on for at least 5 or 6 administrations, that we somehow have to improve upon how people learn, instead of just focusing on this is how Johnny learns, this is how Susie learns, and let's speak to that. No, they want to remake it so that everyone tries to learn the same thing. And, it's interesting that you said that you've run into people looking at you like, well, there's nothing wrong with remaking education. It depends on what the agenda is, who's driving it, who's funding it, that sort of thing. And so I've had people tell me as well, well, we've always had science, we've always had technology and engineering and math, so what's so wrong about that? I want my child to be up on technology, I want them to be up on innovation. And here's the thing, those particular subjects have been around for a long time. Yes, we've taught them very, very well here in America. Otherwise, we wouldn't have people who had gone to the moon or done all the fabulous things that have been invented here in America. But STEM, STEAM, and STREAM. Now, let me tell you what those acronyms are for. First of all, it's science, technology, engineering, and math. That's the STEM. STEAM is science, technology, engineering, the arts, and math. And STREAM is science, technology, reading, writing, engineering, the arts, and math. So STEM started out as just that 4-letter acronym.
Right.
It first showed up in the PCAST report that was given to then President Obama as one of the first documents that he got upon being sworn into office. There was only one other document that he was given, and that was the notorious one about the shape of the nation as far as education. And now here we had someone who had very little experience in legislation, let alone education and all these other things. So he's come into office with a very damning report on education, and he's come in with this advisory council to the president that says, oh, yes, we need to usher in the STEM. Well, now, the STEM was an acronym that the United Nations said, oh, yes, National Science Foundation here in America, you're a NGO or a non-government organization, and you get U.S. taxpayer dollars and you get federal funds. But here's what we want you to do. We want you to come up with a marketing tool for our agenda for the Sustainable Development Goals. And we want you to make it so that it sounds so appealing. So that's how the NSF came up with the STEM, was as a marketing tool. Now, in this PCAST report, and please try to stay with me on this because it can get a little tricky as far as how this goes. This particular report came out around 2010. That was about the time Common Core rolled out. In the report, it will tell you we want a STEM education for STEM careers, for STEM jobs, to create a STEM people, for a STEM nation, for a STEM economy, for the greater global good.
Okay. Okay. Do we have a graphic we can show?
We can, yeah.
Yes. Now, this was from the last administration, but now, okay, I just said about a report that was in 2010. So this was last year. Okay. So it's continued on, but look at this, 2 out of 3 U.S. workers will have some sort of STEM job.
Okay. Um, so I'm going to play devil's advocate here,
Okay.
and
Hmm.
there are plenty of people, plenty of my good friends back in San Francisco that will say, well, what is wrong with that? Science, technology, engineering, writing, arts, math, you know, what fundamentally or philosophically is wrong with creating this kind of new global workforce in these environments?
Okay, well, let me first say that about the time that STEM hit the the president's office. This is when Common Core was rolling out, and people were going, well, there's no way the two can connect. In my research, I have found how they absolutely connect, and how they connect is through the career tech education, which is also Common Core aligned. Now, career tech education in STEM supposedly we're supposed to be for all ages, and we're finding that out that it's instead of being just for adults or people who want to go back to school, a lot of this is being foisted on our pre-K. And what it's teaching and what is so dangerous about it, because all those things in among themselves are not bad, okay? But
Right.
again, this is not basing it off of American values. This is basing it off of the UN Sustainable Development Goals agenda for those 17 goals. In STEM and career tech education are in every one of them. And the thing that's so dangerous, and I had a conversation with a high schooler who was going to one of these types of high schools. And she said, I'm an artist and I want to create. And I was so excited when I got into this particular program because I thought I could be able to create whatever I wanted.
Right.
And come to find out, it was not very far removed from the Russian communist platform of you're a state-owned artist, and thus you will create what we want you to create, not what you feel led to create. And so it stifled every bit of what she wanted to do and replaced it with what the curriculum said she had to do, or the teacher said you had to do. And if you go back and you look at some of the statues in like Moscow, instead of seeing great works of art, you see statues to those cased workers who were in that system, and they wanted so much to get out of that system. And this is what we're seeing this type of thing set up. Again, um, it drives it back to not a true quality academic education, but a workforce trained widget to do whatever this assessment that's aligned with these curriculums
Yeah.
will tell you this is what you have to do. And I think we've talked about this before,
Right.
but it's very basic.
Okay.
Everything that I've seen in my local area makes STEAM and STEM and STREAM sound fun. For example, my summer reading program at my local library, they're calling it Tales, like as in dog and kitty tales, and
Okay.
Tales, like as in stories.
Right.
And it runs from June the 5th to July the 31st. And if you want to find out more about this, it's at www.mooresvillelibrary.org. And it says here, over the summer, the library will continue, don't trip up on that, will continue to offer a variety of programs to children, teens, and adults. Youth of all ages can enjoy story times and STEAM related programming. Teens will be able to participate in activities. And then it goes on to tell you that adults will also be involved. So this is meant to be what it said in that PCAS report, become a STEM people, to take us over and to rule what we do and to dictate where we go and where we work. And so to those people who would say, well, what's wrong with that? I would offer, do you really think you're free when you're being forced into something without realizing you're being forced
Mm-hmm.
into it?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Well, let me bring up this graphic again, this pyramid, because something caught my attention.
Sure.
Yeah. So on here, when you look at
Mm-hmm.
like arts, and you look at all these things. So this is the STEAM, and
Mm-hmm.
something on here really caught my attention. Let me look at it real quick.
Okay.
That basically,
Mining, acoustical, chemical. Are you looking at the engineering
no,
part of it?
I'm looking at let's see. Oh, here at the top here, science and technology interpreted through engineering and the arts, all based in mathematical
Mathematical
elements.
elements. Okay.
Okay,
And
and
what is one of the worst subjects for America to this day under
yeah,
Common Core? Mathematics.
right
Exactly.
It
now,
is. So go ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you cannot build a quality pyramid if your foundation is as faulty as Common Core. And, people will tell me, oh, but there's no connection. Yes, there is. And it's through the project based learning or the team based learning,
Right,
because you're
Right.
only
yeah,
getting bits and pieces of the puzzle. You're not getting that very strong critical thinking on my own 2 feet foundation.
right. And I
Right.
also noticed that they're very they say arts liberal, so liberal arts, and they're being
Hmm.
very liberal in terms of arts because they're including the humanities and
Mm-hmm.
music theater and psychology, which I would put into more of a science,
Hmm.
Well,
social
yeah.
studies, and ec- STS, economy, politics, education, and futurology.
Futurology. That's a
Well,
nice
here's
That's
the
one.
thing:
awesome. I
is
love that
is
term.
here in America, the National Endowment for the Arts, the National Endowment for the Humanities, the National Music Association, every one of them has sold out to this agenda, and they have
Okay.
congressional caucuses that will bully pulpit for them because they feel that the STEM affinity network that is in America has invested
Hmm.
billions to make America not America in values, attitudes, and beliefs. And that's what a lot of this STEM stream and STEAM attack is your attitudes, values, and beliefs. Because you can't be a good UN disciple nation if you don't have the collectivism platform.
Okay.
Okay. So the
Um,
communitarian.
the community, we call it
Right,
communitarianism,
Yeah.
but
right.
right.
Yeah.
So just historically,
Yes.
again, I'm going to be the the
Sure.
antithetical voice. I'm going to be
Okay.
the voice that pushes back a little.
Okay.
So the for instance, let's go back to what, the 20s, the 30s, the WPA era, where
Mm-hmm.
the administration was commissioning artists and mathematicians and engineers to sort of build back or build up America. We
Mm-hmm.
have beautiful WPA era stone bridges in a local park that we like to go to occasionally. We have beautiful WPA murals that were painted by Russian immigrants in San
Mm-hmm.
Francisco that we did a beautiful video essay about. So some people will look at this STEM and STEAM program and say, well, it's just like that. We're just recreating and modernizing this kind of WPA era initiative.
No,
No.
because
Okay.
you said they were commissioned, which meant they had a choice in what
Okay.
they drew or
I
what
see.
they
Yeah.
created.
That's
Or their
true. Yeah.
interpretation.
This is
Right.
not commissioned. This is almost mandated.
Got
Of
it.
this is what,
Okay.
and I'm telling you, the conversation I had with the student was so eye opening, about what was acceptable as you created the art and what was not acceptable. And I had probably 3 days before this conversation had the opportunity to look into some of the interviews with the former communist state artist, and they're lamenting over, I really just wanted to create what I wanted to. And I know that may sound simple to some people, but unless you're an artist, or even if you're not an artist, there are certain things you want to be able to accomplish on your own,
Hmm.
to say, hey, this is what I can do, and look how cool it is.
Right.
And when the
Right.
government
Okay.
at any level comes in and says, oh no, you can't do A, B, and C, you're going to do D, E, and F, that it goes from being a joy to being a straitjacket.
Hmm.
And
Right.
anytime you've got a phrase that says, we're going to create an education to make this kind of people, for this kind of job, for this kind of economy, for the greater global good, yes, that's terrible in what it sounds like, but can you just visualize how awful that is? We're not going to accept you as you, or let or allow you to be free in our society to contribute the way that you want to be. No, we're going to stick you in this tiny box, and we're going to apply it nationally because you don't matter, but to the community you absolutely do.
Yeah, and that just flies in the face of at least 500, but probably 1,000 years of Western art history, right,
It,
and
it,
tradition,
Right.
right?
it
You know,
does. I mean, can you imagine if Michelangelo had been told, "I'm sorry, you can't go paint the Sistine Chapel. You're going
well,
to have to
actually,
go."
Hmm.
that's an odd example because he was a sculptor, and
Right.
he was told to paint the Sistine Chapel,
Even though
Well, okay, so
and
bad
he didn't want to.
example, but
But I get what you. I
okay,
take your
no,
point.
no, we get it. No,
but you know, had he not been okay, so yes, he was
Yes,
told, but
right.
here's my point.
he
Okay,
was
so
able to
he
interpret
was
what he
able
wanted.
to
Yeah,
do it. He went outside his comfort zone. He was able to do it, even though he was told, you know, okay, this is what you need to do.
he didn't
I'm
tell.
so
Yeah,
sorry.
no, no,
Oh
no, it's okay.
well.
He wasn't.
JP and his art
An
degree,
And
assessment did not put him there. Let's put it that way.
well, let's
right?
put it this way: he was able to paint the subject matter that he wanted to. I mean, well, the
Yes.
subject matter, of course, had to be religious, but I mean, he was pretty much
Right.
free to work within that
And
context.
and right, he was not told you will go and paint the hammer and the sickle.
Right. Well, I think that,
Or worse.
and I was
Yeah.
going to bring up some examples of like revolutionary period Russian art. If you
Hmm.
look up like suprematism and the artist Radchenko, you'll find these really cool abstract, like red and black triangles and very cool kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And those people, they were supporting the revolution at the time, but after things kind of, gelled, by the 1920s, they were pushed out, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
all artists were forced into,
Hmm.
social realism, which you see in those Russian posters and, the Chinese posters. And, social realism was a popular form here in America at the same time. It's just it was applied differently.
Yeah. And I
You
think,
know?
and that's where a lot of people, Julie, to your devil's advocacy points, that's where a lot of people trip up, is because they're so used to, well, it used to be this way, or it's not that far removed from the other. How can it be so bad? And that's just it. You have to look at underneath what's going on. If you would bring up the image of the pipeline, because I want to
I
speak
was
to
just
Yeah.
going
that.
to suggest
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Yes.
Hmm.
All right.
Okay. This is one that a local to, let's see here. Well, it says it's the North Carolina ES, the Digest of Education Stats. All right. There was a news channel over in Raleigh, the state capital, that actually published this. And when I saw it, the thing that went through my mind is not water, but people. They're
Right.
funneling people through this pipeline on purpose. And this is showing you what a poor job we're doing at getting STEM across. Now, this was back in 2001. Okay. So it goes on to tell you, we expect all these graduates and blah, 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 blah. Go to the next image, the one I just sent you that you were able to resize, because I want you to see
This one?
it. No, no,
Or
the other one,
oh, this
the
one.
black, that one. Okay. This is now.
Right.
So go from the
Wow.
pipeline to this, and the attitude has changed from we're doing a poor job at educating in STEM to now STEM should reflect America. Well, why can't America reflect America? Because
Right.
again, if this was rooted in American science and technology and engineering and math, it'd be one thing. STEM is a tool by the United Nations
Nope.
development goals to make education the number one change agent, because the UN knew if they forced this kind of agenda on us, we would never take it. But if it felt like it came from within our borders, we would be all over it. And that's why you see well, oh, we need this kind of stuff. And oh, yes, I'm supportive of it, because they think that it's America, but it's not. It's absolutely not. And you can find this kind of information on my blog. You want to especially look for the Sustainable Development Toolkit. Now, what's so interesting about that, and it's a very lengthy document, is that it was created out of the University of Tennessee. So while it supports and uplifts the Sustainable Development Goals, it was written on American soil by an American professor. And she was so indoctrinated with all the UN's initiatives that she's telling you this is how you can turn your community upside down and have them think that it's something local and good and great, when no, this is how we're going to be able to come in and make all those changes that America didn't want in the first place.
Um, regarding, so you mentioned, before we went
Mhm.
live, you mentioned that this really has Betsy DeVos written all over it. Um, you
Well,
know,
yeah.
and we're a little familiar with her, her background being the, what was it, the Amway heiress or something like that.
And then her relation to
And then her relation to Eric Prince, at Blackwater.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the private mercenary uh,
Hmm.
agency that Obama used to disrupt Occupy. But anyway,
Right.
uh, um, the uh, I remember when she was kind of vetted by Senator Bernie Sanders back in 2015 or
Hmm.
2016.
Hmm.
And her responses to all of his questions about education and her background in education was really it was very corporate.
Hmm.
It reminded me of a corporate dialogue where there's just a lot of beige words that you can't really pin down, big smiles. Has the entire educational apparatus in our government been occupied by corporate interests like Betsy DeVos, in your
Absolutely.
opinion?
Absolutely. Now, when I said what I did about Betsy, it was the image you showed from your local STEAM program
Right.
about Remake Education or Remake Learning. That was it. Hmm.
Hmm.
Arnie Duncan has said basically the same thing. Okay. He was under Obama. John King did a Reimagine tour. Okay. Betsy DeVos did a remaking tour. Then she went down to Argentina at the G20 and, without the citizens' approval, signed agreements to merge education and labor that would take things like STEM and career tech education and Common Core and make it almost mandatory. Well, not almost, but would make it mandatory. Dr. Cardona, he is the current Secretary of Education under President Biden. He is carrying on the same thing. Now, the underlying theme through all these secretaries of education, first of all, they're as unconstitutional in their positions as all get out. Okay. The
Okay.
second thing is that corporations have owned our government for so long, they are dictating what flies for education and what doesn't. And I just this morning was talking with my host on Sons of Liberty, and we were talking about not only global education and how STEM falls into this, but it'll fall in through the artificial intelligence, it'll fall in through innovation, and innovation for our US government is always code for more data mining and data tracking. This will tie into the blockchain. So, as troublesome as all that is, and this is what STEM is breeding in America, are people who will spy on each other, people who will keep up with each other, people who will do nothing but code and push buttons and not get out and enjoy the sunshine and not get out and exercise and not get out and be a plumber or a
mm,
car mechanic or whatever.
whatever whatever
Yeah.
they want to do. Yeah.
Right,
Right.
exactly. So, and to me, while someone may listen to this and go, "Ah, she's got her head on backwards," I just want to say there is so much more to this conversation than our time is going to allow for. The only thing I would urge you to do is to go to my blog, commoncorediva.com, type in STEM, and I cannot remember the number of pages that you're going to get on all the articles telling you, okay, this is how nefarious this is. This is how sneaky all this is. So, again, it's not just for public school students, it's not just for young people. This is to go from cradle to grave.
Right.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just I was reviewing our video, lifelong learning,
Right.
and we meant, and I was like, oh wow, we mentioned that cradle to
Mm-hmm.
grave idea.
Hmm.
And I was also thinking of the video we just put out called Globotics, which is sort of an addendum to that first video.
Which
you
you can
know
Yeah.
find on our Patreon
yeah, you
page.
can find it on our Patreon page.
Very good.
But we basically were talking about how um, you won't have a choice of what you really want to do, and we're
Mm-mm.
talking about, like, the in between, the haptic technology, where people are stuck basically, driving a robot around
A
a
warehouse.
warehouse, or cleaning toilets in another location altogether.
Right.
Yeah, it's just so disturbing to me, and I think if we really knew how many of our taxpayer dollars were going to fund this, that people would be shocked, and they should be, because there shouldn't be a STEM affinity network. There should not be a national career tech association or career pathways movement. There should not be a lot of this nationalized education uh, coalitions and initiatives. But we're seeing our Congress, we're seeing our administrations, be they Republican or Democrat, that are churning this nationalized stuff out. And
Mhm.
at the root of it, and we just went over it this morning, and I cannot remember the bill number, but it's setting up regionalism. And we know that the regionalism is from where?
From the UN
UN.
Mm-hmm.
and the
Exactly.
World Economic Forum.
Exactly. And the World Bank.
Right,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Let's
So
see
this,
here.
all of these programs, all of these educational programs, and all of these
Mm-hmm.
programs that seem to be going through a reshaping,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's happening across the globe. So
Oh,
it's no
yes.
longer, Americans fighting for American values, or
Mm-hmm.
paying into a tax base for American safety nets or legislation,
Right.
or even say France, paying
Mm-hmm.
their tax base,
Right.
paying into something that's French, or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, pick a country. So what we're talking about is an overall homogenization of our life, whether it's through, how we practice medicine,
Mm-hmm.
or how we, go to school, what we learn when we go to
What
school,
kind of art we make?
what kind of art we make.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you are sort of sounding the alarm, not just for the United States, but for the whole world. You know,
Right. And
you
it's
know,
been really fascinating that some people in the UK have picked up on my work, and they're finding that, oh, wow, this is not just an UK problem. They're having the
right.
same problem in the United States, or, that sort of thing. But let
Hmm.
me really quickly give you a couple of bills that we went over this morning so you can see that you're exactly right. It's not just America. All right, let me see here. All right, HR 2907 is called the Global Investment in American Jobs Act. Now, this will take the U.S. Department of Commerce to create more international public private partnerships, fascism,
That's right.
to invest in American jobs, and of course, this will bring in the innovation, the technology, the STEM, the STEAM, the STREAM. Okay, we also have let's see here, authorizing money. This is S2026, authorization for appropriations for a global engagement center under the U.S. Department of State. We also have the international P3, known as the Global Partnership for Education, which will be all over the UN's kind of stuff. Now, the two most troublesome bills that we went over today were S1453 and HR 2940. These and this is called the Advancing International and Foreign Language Education Act. Education is mentioned 66 times in the Senate version and 73 in the House version, excuse me. And the whole goal is to create more STEM, more education partnerships, more internationally benchmarked standards, more big business, more nonprofit profits, more corporations, more nationalized databases, more nationalized STEM and career tech summer programs for anyone who wants them. And these are on the books, and these can be fought at a local level so
Mhm.
that they don't become a national or international. But we've got to be able to speak out about them.
Hmm. Wow.
Wow.
Well, to kind of uh, tag on to what you were just talking about, I came across some phrases and some texts. I think they were in an email that you sent us to help
Mm-hmm.
us prepare for this.
Okay.
And so this one is it says STEAM education aims to bring functional literacy, and I bolded that because I want to come back to that term.
Okay.
Aims to bring functional literacy to all. It promotes bridging the gap between business and educational goals to create a more productive and sustainable global culture based on teamwork.
Oh,
And
kumbaya.
I also looked up. the functional literacy because I thought, well, that's an interesting phrase
Mm-hmm.
or term.
Mm-hmm.
And I found UNESCO. Yeah, UNESCO's
Oh,
definition of functional literacy is refers to the capacity of a person to engage in all those activities in which literacy is required for effective function of his or her group and community, and also for enabling him or her, and not them, not they, ooh, uh, they missed that one, to continue to use reading, writing, and calculation for his or her own and the community's development. Isn't that cute?
Uh,
What?
that's such a long, long way to describe you're going to be able to barely read, write,
Mhm.
or spell.
That's basically
that's
it. That's what I
Yeah.
basically
thought.
it.
Yeah,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
That
You're
is
gonna
such a fancy way to put all that, but
right. You
imagine that UNESCO would be found among all that.
right. Yeah. Well,
Okay.
I figured,
Wow.
when I read that term, I thought that that's what it meant, like just the bare minimum of what you need
Mm-hmm.
to know to get by.
Well, here's one thing that I brought up earlier this morning was under Common Core and the STEM that comes with it. We've been barely able to educate our students at any age to think for themselves or to read whole text by themselves or
Mhm.
to even write a sentence that's grammatically correct or how to pronounce words. So if we can't do that with English, why the heck are we trying to do it with globalized language?
Mhm. Well, it just
Hmm.
feels like everything's been atomized,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
from, reading and writing to, the math and the way that I've seen people describe how they calculate something is like these little pieces and then they finally get to the answer. And it just feels so roundabout and like I say, atomized. So meaning,
Hmm.
they take little tiny pieces of something to create a whole. But when you do it that way, it's hard to follow the arc or the course of whatever
Hmm.
the big picture is. And I have a feeling that that's what they're trying to do is eliminate the idea of big picture thinking and big picture. You what
Oh
did you?
no, you can't. No, you can't have big picture thinking. What are you? What are you? No, 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 no. We have to all be in a box, and we have to. That box has to be sat upon by the big government. But I
Mhm.
wanted to point out one other thing. You said that it was to close the gap between work and
Uh,
school. Was that
yeah,
it?
yeah. So it promotes bridging the gap between business and
Oh,
educational goals to create
okay.
a more productive,
Right.
sustainable global culture.
Our government is really, really good at pointing you to the wrong figures to look at when it comes to employed and unemployed.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And they like to use it to bring about the false argument that we have a skills gap in America and that they're the ones to close it. Now, the reason I say it that way, because I saw the way you looked, was we do have skilled workers, we do have jobs, but they're not getting connected on purpose. And the government is using that as a bully pulpit to come in and say, well, here's the problem. Oh, we're the only ones who have the solution.
Okay, so let me kind of like reinterpret what
Okay.
you just said. Let me make sure
Okay.
I'm getting this right.
Okay.
So there are skills out there. People have
Mm-hmm.
the skills.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is they are purposefully being kept from working in those skills-based industries so that the government can then turn around and say, well, look at all these people that are out of work. We better do these homogenized programs. We better do
Exactly.
these bare minimum programs
Why do you
that
think
are
we have
all
so many COVID relief bills? It
right.
was to that point.
Okay.
Hmm. Right.
Okay. So once again, it's this, manufacturing of a false narrative and
Mm-hmm.
marketing that
Mm-hmm.
is basically promoting more marginalization, more poverty, lack of opportunity, and forcing people into services that they probably don't need.
Yeah.
Well, that's the basis of impact investment.
Right.
Right, right. And
Right.
here's the thing, the Department of Labor is the main one who will steer you in the wrong direction. But what we need to understand is that when the Every Student Succeeds Act was signed into laws, unconstitutional as it was, it gave the biggest power increase to the Department of Health and Human Services. Now, this is an education law, okay? But it gave the biggest increase to Health and Human Services so that everyone could be labeled and assessed for some sort of behavior intervention that would attack their social and emotional values in learning. Okay. Labor and education also got huge power increases. Now, what a lot of people don't understand is that before every student succeeds at the data trails from the education side were called the Student Longitudinal Data System. Okay. From the labor side, it was called the Workforce Quality Data Initiative, or the WQDI. These two were purposely joined so that your career track from education could move forward, and from the labor part, they could take the data of all those who'd gone through that track and then backtrack it so that they could streamline education earlier and earlier for nothing but skills based, mastery based, outcome based, Skinnerian, Dewey, the whole 9 yards, workforce prep education.
Right, right.
Okay.
Well,
And
I noticed.
STEM plays right into it.
Yeah, for
Right.
sure. Well, one of the
Right.
things that I noticed, so in that paragraph that I read to you earlier, and I
Hmm.
bolded certain words, and I noticed at the end it was based on teamwork, which is a very corporate way of looking at things. So
Oh
again,
yeah.
we're coming back to the idea of corporations running our education, and I will put
Hmm.
it to you that they've always done that
Right.
Oh, yeah.
since the first industrial revolution.
Right.
Where the whole idea of a school bell and sitting in,
Pavlovian
yeah,
response.
and sitting in rows and
Right.
everything is so even back at the turn of the 20th into the 19th into the 20th century, the education of early 20th century was based on the factory model, and now we're
Absolutely.
basing everything on
The technology.
yeah.
Right. And I don't argue that, but back then it wasn't quite as obvious as it is now,
Sure.
because now
Right.
they're
Absolutely.
not hiding, hey, this is what we're up to, and we don't give a, what, if you find out about it, we're still going to do it. And we're
Yeah.
going to use your money to do it to your own kids and to yourself.
Well, true. Yeah, exactly. And there was still that level of individuality and freedom,
Hmm.
in the older system that you don't find now.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, it's a straitjacket, but that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because with a straitjacket, any of your movement is what? It's restricted.
Okay. Well,
Right.
I wanted to
This just
come.
attacks your, this just restricts your mind, is what it does.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of uh, ties into with what the next thing. I wanted to come back to the idea of project-based learning.
Okay.
So when I read that, I was like, well, there have been other systems and ideas that, kind of, use the idea of projects as a way of learning. And it seems like it's okay. I'm playing devil's advocate this time, like
Hmm.
Julie was before. So what's wrong with that? Lynn, tell me what's wrong with
Okay,
that?
well, first of all, the research I've done on project based learning came from the Buck Institute. And the Buck Institute is really, really old, and way back when, maybe they did some really good work, but they bought into the whole workforce college career readiness agenda from the Common Core. And when they did that, they said, oh, we're going to resurrect project based learning because it's worked so well in other countries. We're going to bring it into America. And basically, what happens is that it is so overused in today's education system that you have people who have gone through project based learning activity after project based learning activity to the point, and I have met these students, and it is horrid what happens. Instead of being able to hold a conversation on their own, they cannot do it. As far as being able to speak on their own, write on their own, read on their own, create on their own, they cannot do it because they've been so indoctrinated with you by yourself. It doesn't matter what you can do, but as this group, you are very much a part of it only if you succeed. Now, if the whole group in their project based learning fails, then you're all failures. But if you succeed, you all succeed. But 9 times out of 10, there might be two people out of that group that actually do the work, and the rest get the credit
Hmm.
and skate
Mhm.
by.
Right.
And
That's again very corporate.
right,
Right.
right.
So when wait, so what you just said there,
Hmm.
it's for some reason a term that I heard probably 20, 30 years ago, where some parents were were upset by this term. It's called grading on the curve.
Yeah.
Is
Hmm.
that similar to that concept?
It very much is. Grading on the curve pretty much goes along the premise of, well, you got 95% of it, so we're just going to give you the other 5%. It's how kids fell through the cracks. It
Okay.
was how, because they were graded on such a curve that was so unfair, either to their true needs and played to the system so that the school could get the money, or sometimes it really was there at one point. Let me just back up in the middle of my sentence here. At one point, grading on the curve could be used for good, but like anything that's done in this educratic system, they have twisted it so that it's no longer good, and it benefits the government. It doesn't benefit the child or the
Right.
Right.
student who needs it. Okay,
Okay.
this is called group grading, is what project-based learning does. So the whole, let's say you and JP and I worked on a project together and we got an A, then we would all get an A. We
Okay.
would
Right.
never have a grade of our own that said, okay, well, JP gets a B plus, Julie gets an A, and Lynn gets a C, because Lynn didn't contribute as much to the project. You see, that's a little bit of the difference, because I
Right.
can remember doing group projects in grade and
Yeah.
junior high. They call it middle school now, but it was in junior high. And yes, you had a group project, but you were individually graded for your part of that particular project, so that if I didn't do as much, my grade reflected that.
Right.
Okay. In the modern twist, doesn't matter whether you picked up a pencil and handed it to someone, you got an A. So think about that monkey who's trained to hit a button.
Right.
Yay, got an
Yay.
A, got an
Right.
A.
Right.
So that goes back to when you talk about monkeys being trained to hit the
Hmm.
button. To me, that goes, and I know we're kind of getting off the subject of STEM,
Right.
but
No,
but
it all plays in. It really does.
it all plays in. Okay,
Yeah.
so something that we mentioned in lifelong learning is the behavioral learning. So
Hmm.
it's not really what you've absorbed. It's not really what you've learned. Or it's not even teaching you critical thinking skills.
Right.
It's just basically teaching you how to be obedient.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
We
it's
have a
what you're conditioned to.
exactly. We
And
have
that's
a
right. And that's what the danger in STEM is. It's conditioning you to have that STEM education to become a STEM person for the STEM job, for STEM economy.
so
That's
basically to say yes, sir, for the rest of your life. Really,
Right.
like
Well,
yes, ma'am.
you know,
man.
I think also this is a means of, like training psychopaths, right? Because
Hmm.
if you are one of those students that gets by on getting good grades by doing nothing in the group project, you know, you have that ability to manipulate other people, then you're gonna do well in your career in the future, and others, and without having to do much at all. The thing that you're learning is how to manipulate people rather than learning how to do anything for yourself.
Exactly. And
Right.
here's the rub for someone like me. See, I was taught to question everything,
Mm-hmm.
not to be defiant, but because I wanted to understand for myself
Mm-hmm.
why something was the way it was. And don't just tell me because that's the way it's always been. I want to know why, which is one of the things that has played very well into all my research. I am such the questioner. I am such the nonconformist that in that particular scenario, JP, I would be the one that would be picked on the most because I'm questioning and I'm not conforming and I'm wanting to do my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, that's
people like that, this is one of the other dangers. People like that are meant to be somehow um eliminated, whether it's physically or just on paper.
mm-hmm. Yeah. No,
Right.
I'm an example of that,
Yeah, he
and
is the example, like in the corporate
in the
world and
corporate world, we mentioned this last time when we were
Right.
talking. I'm thinking, all those tests I was taking as a child back in the '70s, probably started routing me into certain directions. I mean, they probably started doing this, back then. You mentioned the '50s was probably when they started doing this. So, I happened to sneak into the corporate world because I found my way through, other means. not that I really wanted to be there. I wanted to be
Right.
doing, just the design work that I was doing. Um,
Hmm.
and it got me into the corporations, and I had a miserable time because I didn't belong there. And it was clear to me that I, I didn't belong there because I
Hmm.
wasn't trained to belong there. Right.
Right.
And, there was one employer that did this test, for everybody, and they put it in, they couched it in this thing where we were being mentored, and
Oh.
yeah, and so the mentor, had us take this skills test, and it was like, I forget
Challenge.
the yeah, and it was, no, it wasn't a challenge. It was actually this book, and you had these tests, the questions, and they then, it was your strengths. It was the Strengths Finder test,
Oh, okay. Hmm.
and they found your strengths, and so one of mine was empathy. I was very strong in that, and another was in, learning and research and teaching, right? So all these things that are like,
Empathy
human and
based.
empathy based, and
Right.
Hmm.
where you do well, relating to other people, not just working as a team. And guess who got bounced out in the next reorg?
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
So you know these are ways of weeding out people as well. So they
Yes.
look for, the skills that you're talking about. So when you
Hmm.
said you were picked on, or you would have been picked on, I agree. I mean, these are the things that they use to weed people out, as well as call people in.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Be good robot.
And one of the things about STEM that we've seen also in Common Core, and that is that you have all these. There are different tracks for careers. Okay, and within each of the 16 tracks, there are a myriad of particular jobs that you can have. There's only probably about 5% that will be managerial,
Hmm.
Hmm.
95 that will not, and very few students, and this doesn't matter if you're in the public system or not, it's going to come at you at community colleges. And one of the things about the two most troublesome bills that I was telling you about, as far as regionalism and nationalism and all that, they are going to take an international education standardized curriculum and apply it to every community college. So if you're that person coming back, from, let's say, you've been out of school for 50 years and you're going back to community college to relearn something, or you're that homeschool kid who has graduated and you're going to community college because you want to save some money. When you take that one place that and this is the thing, the system knows that community colleges are like a Camelot of indoctrination. And this is very troublesome because, I've had all kinds of people tell me, oh, well, this stuff isn't going to touch me. I homeschool and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, did you send them to dual enrollment? Yep. It's there. If it's not in the assessments, it's going to be in what's taught. And I know for a fact that the president for the National Association for Community Colleges here in America has used Camelot as the description, because he said, if we ever wanted to be in the perfect position to capture as many people as we could into this kind of system, community college is it.
Hmm. Now, by Camelot, you mean the round table?
The utopia.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
so Camelot, I feel like the term Camelot, just as a side note, was being kind of thrown around during the
Yeah.
Clinton administration
Well, and it was during the Kennedy administration.
and the
It
Kennedy
was.
Right.
administration, which is
It
before my
was, but
time.
when I heard this come out of this man's mouth, I'm sitting there, and if anyone thinks this is just for public education, it's so not. It is just not. And that's the whole thing, is it's not. STEM is supposed to be in your community on purpose. I've even seen STEM vacation Bible school. So it's now infiltrated the church. And the very nature of STEM is rooted in the UN. And if you look at the roots of the UN, it is anything but godly.
Hmm.
Even the Church of Satan is embracing STEM.
Hey,
Okay.
well, there's a plus.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, so I think that another thing that I wanted to talk about STEM is
Hmm.
that it's being marketed as, you know, kind of a lifelong learning
Hmm.
kind of thing, where the more you engage in science, technology, engineering, the arts, math, reading, all this, and you keep taking classes to improve your job uh, viability,
Uh-huh.
that you can, work and go to school, and isn't that a fun thing? Like, you get to be like a student forever while you're earning an income, and
Yep.
sometimes your employer will pay for your education. So,
Oh,
and
yes,
if you
there's
were
that free education again.
Right. But
right.
you end up paying them back.
Right.
Oh,
It comes out of your
absolutely.
paycheck, and
Yeah.
you don't, and JP is a good cautionary tale, because once
Mm-hmm.
he hit his expiration date of what, age 51, age
Yeah,
52,
something like
he
that.
was out. Like, he was done. And so a
Mm-hmm.
lot of these students who are part of these STEM, STEAM, STREAM programs are under the impression that, they will have a lifetime of opportunity awarded to them because they're getting all of the right, classes and education in all of the right departments, and that they'll be able to, retire, and that they'll have a better life than their parents who are enrolling them in these programs, or who are, encouraging them to go into these programs. And I'm noticing that it's usually the communities that, you know um, really talk up the STEM programs that are more poor. Like, it's the more
Yeah.
impoverished communities. It's like,
It's it's modern day indentured servitude is exactly what it is, because if you look at where these people are going to end up, there's a reason why the federal government, and I don't care what administration it is, but we've seen it in the last one, we're seeing it in this one, is that federal government is expanding on purpose. And the reason why is to set the stage for all these people in these STEM jobs who will now become federal employees. So we're going to see a big increase of federal employees in these particular STEM fields. And yeah, you went and you got all this lifelong education, you got all this opportunity, but you're going to be a government owned indentured servant.
Hmm.
And I've seen this happen with some of the student loan paybacks. Obama was wondering why more people didn't sign up for his program. What it meant was you had to give the government at least 10 years of your life, and then they would magically forgive the rest of whatever you owed. Well,
hmm,
that might sound great, but I don't want to give my freedoms any more than I have to, especially to go sign up and say, yes, I'm going to give the federal government, who is screwing me 6 ways to Sunday, 10 years of my life. I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
right.
Well,
Let
and
me give you, let me
yeah, yeah,
give you
please.
this. Due on July the 7th, 2021, the Department of Education is estimating $32 million in STEM projects for funding, and 32 million more in funding for STEM social and emotional projects. So, right there, you have proof from the Department of Education. This is not just about science, technology, engineering, and math. This is about how we're going to manipulate your social and emotional attitudes, values, and beliefs to conform to not what you want or maybe what your family wants, but what the government wants.
Right. It's all behavioral driven.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
behavior management. And I'm working with another lady. We have a broadcast every Thursday morning, and we're looking at a document that is out of the UK that the European Union has adopted, and it is all on this behavior economics and how governments are going to use these sorts of things, JP, to drive public policy.
Hmm.
Okay. Wow.
We're actually stunned here.
It's
I'm
hard
so,
because when you start to drive legislation based on, um, this kind of immoral, it's really sideways,
right.
it's a slippery slope,
It
for lack
is
of a better term,
absolutely. And
you
y'all
know.
may want to rethink how often I come on, because every time I come on, I seem to stun you, and I don't want to give you a heart attack.
No, no, we have a high degree
Yeah,
of
nothing seems to surprise us
eh,
anymore, but it's the realization, the realization of what you say. And also, Lynn, just to be quite honest, we see it every day in our own
Hmm.
neighborhood.
right.
And
There
it's
are
frightening, isn't it?
It
You're
is.
seeing this play out. I would, and I've told people, I don't know how many times, I would love to be wrong. I really, really
I
would like to
know.
be wrong, because, then you could look at me and say, yeah, you really do have your head screwed on backwards. But this verifies everything I've been researching. And so, yeah, you're seeing it. A lot of other people are seeing it. And we should be doing something to fight it before it does consume us. Because you're right. When you
Yeah.
Right.
take legislation to drive behavior, that's really scary.
Well, is that like totalitarianism
Yeah,
or
I think
that is
so.
Yeah, it
totalitarianism,
It's
is.
right?
one of those isms.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, it is.
Now,
Yeah.
let's try to we were coming up on the hour, so let's
Okay.
try to, bring it maybe end on a happy note. I
Okay.
do know
Yeah.
that there are I do know that there are new schools or new ways of teaching children that are popping up. I have a sister-in-law who homeschools, and
Mm-hmm.
I have a brother who is, off. He's deployed right now, so nobody knows where he is. So what she's done is she's created a diary of their daily activities,
Mm-hmm.
so that he can log in and see the videos. And the videos are public; anybody can go watch them. But it's mostly for him, so that he can
Yeah.
see what the kids are up to. And every day she has outings. She has, there's baking, there's some science projects.
Mm-hmm.
Now, her homeschooling, because she's military, it's probably under the same kind of, you know,
Yeah.
control of,
Right.
but the fact is that if we could take that concept where
Mm-hmm.
we have these sort of one room schoolhouses, which I think are starting to pop up because parents are listening to you, they're watching our video Lifelong Learning, they are talking to each other finally,
Mm-hmm.
and they're starting to see that there's really no way that you can, as you say, kind of like fight this. I don't think you can really fight it. I think what parents need to do is just fall away from it and start a whole new school of thought and create, one room schoolhouses and teach things
Right.
like, car repair and baking and, house cleaning and then teach the
Right.
basics that we grew up with, history,
Right.
math,
And
science.
that in itself is a way to fight back. So,
Right.
maybe we may not be successful in the legislation part, but here's the thing. If Since everyone seems to be so like-minded on this particular thing, remember there's a head that does something different than the feet. And then there are the hands that do something than the head and the feet. My point is you're like-minded, you want the same goal, so, okay, maybe the head can go to the legislative body and say, we're not going to take it. And then the hands can go do another part of this one room schoolhouse, and then the feet can do another. You see where I'm going with this?
Mhm.
Right.
It's really fascinating. But the one thing I would caution, okay, do your things at home, but stay away from anything that's free, especially as it's being funneled through the system.
Right.
Yeah, the military was used as test dummies for Common Core,
Right.
and they have programs in STEM as well, because that's the wave of the future.
Right.
Well, I have two comments to one to what Julie was saying, and then another to what we're talking about in general. The first is I've been watching these videos too, and it seems to me like these are still, even though they seem pretty free form, there's still opportunities for collecting badges,
Right.
and
Yeah.
I did this kind of education.
Yeah, and that's part of that artificial intelligence that we need to be so careful of, because that builds the digital blockchain. And, if you're not sure how blockchain is so bad, I don't know if you guys have had a chat with Allison McDowell, but she has done a fabulous job over on her blog, Wrenching the Gears, about just how toxic the blockchain is and how much of the fourth industrial revolution it is, and how we should be running pell mell the other way from it.
Hmm.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
Of course, we're familiar with her work. We've
Hmm.
used some of her commentary to
Right.
support our narrative for lifelong
Hmm.
learning. So,
And
absolutely.
Right.
yeah,
We read
yeah.
her blog regularly, actually.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
yeah.
but I know that a lot of people out there don't. So that was a
Right.
nice plug.
And the other
Good.
thing,
Yeah.
and the other thing regarding all this is that if you do homeschool or you do find that you're setting up your own schoolhouse or whatever, and we were talking to Julianne Romanella a few weeks ago, and she was talking about a school that somebody she knew through her church was setting up, which was a like a classical education type of
Right.
school.
Right.
which sounds terrific.
So no masks, no
Yeah,
tablets,
cursive writing, these kinds of
cursive
things. But I had
writing.
one more point, and
Okay.
that
Okay.
is that even though you might find yourself, in these situations or creating your own schools, something we point out in lifelong learning is that if you are off that grid, if you are out of that,
Mm-hmm.
you're not doing what the STEM
Right.
the Common Core and all these things, collecting the badges and doing all this stuff. If you're not part of that system, your child could eventually be considered off the grid, not available for any employment, not available for any sort of services, and possibly not even, they possibly might not even acknowledge their existence, which
Yeah.
is a good thing and it could be a bad thing.
Right. It
What?
depends on your
Yeah. It's a
socioeconomic status.
Right.
right. It's a double-edged sword, and I would just say that yeah, it would be good in one way to be off the grid, but then you're right, especially with the jobs going to this. If you don't have national credentials, you can't get a job, and
Right.
that's part of this system,
Yeah.
this terrible, terrible system. It
And
really, really is.
for us, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'd prefer to be off the grid, but I'm not going to tell our neighbors across the alley, who have grown up impoverished their entire life, that's what they should do, is be off the grid, because
Right.
their opportunities diminish extremely, even as bad as those opportunities are.
Right.
Right.
Well, one okay, that brings up something that we need to point out about the STEM. The STEM is one of the best ways that your state, your community, uh, and America will be split up in those
Hmm.
Right.
opportunity
Yeah.
zones. Those
Yeah.
Right.
now here in North Carolina, they're called prosperity zones,
Right.
and that to me just smacks in the face of everything that we were taught, which is you go be the best you can. No, not everybody's going to have the same opportunity, but you're there to help each other. This will totally fly in the face of that, and again, it's STEM is going to be one of the main conduits for this.
We live in an opportunity zone, and the
Yeah.
children that are doing the tablet learning and doing the STEM learning, they're they're not great. I mean,
Yeah.
they're adorable and they're funny, and
Right.
they come over to our house and hang out with us, but they have trouble with math and reading and some basic
They're
stuff that
being they're
at
being
their
so
age they
go
should
ahead.
know.
Yeah, it's child abuse, is what it is. And we've said this about Common Core for years, and we could say the same for STEM, because you're seeing these little people who could be so much more equipped at their ages for reading and math and all these things. And they're being so disserved, but everybody thinks it's cool because why not?
Yeah. Well, I see a lot of posters, especially for the uh, what are those schools, the
Charter
charter schools.
schools,
Thank you.
right?
Oh,
You see the
They're
charter,
the
the
worst.
and I knew some kids that went to a charter school, and the posters for that particular school were awesome because they show kids doing projects together, and they're at a like a table and like doing science experiments, and it's really groovy, and do so yeah, groovy. So
I know
no,
what it means. I'm fine.
no, I know. It's just, and it makes it look so cool, and yeah, I want to go to that school, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's just,
here's how they dressed up the libraries program. All right, you're going to be able to learn about guide dogs, make balloon animals, play life-size games, take a pet parenting 101 class. Parents will be able to take prescription drug misuse programs, discover how to backyard chicken, and all this other kind of stuff. Oh,
I want to
and
learn that.
even participate in a Lost to the 80s escape room. Yeah, that sounds like fun, doesn't it?
What?
But
Wow.
participate in a Lost in the 80s escape room. I'm
What?
not sure what they mean by that,
What
but
does that even mean? Yeah.
That
I
sounds
don't
like
know.
it
But
sounds like
yeah,
a
you dress the agenda up to sound so much fun that you draw people in. And I don't know if you ever saw the movie Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, but
Oh yeah.
the child catcher,
Yeah.
remember,
Yep.
decorated his little child prison, all with the candy and the free sweets for
Mhm.
today. And he drew the children in, and once he drew them in, they were his
And
prisoner.
the outside disappeared, and it was a cage.
Yeah, it was
it
a
was a cage.
cage.
Exactly. So that's exactly the kind of thing that we talk about in lifelong learning as well. I had a point and I forgot it. Oh
No.
well.
Aw.
Yeah, it's a little afternoon right now here, so
Oh,
we've been on it for over an hour.
Okay.
okay.
Why don't we bring up her website again,
Yeah. Okay.
and remind people where else they can find you, Sons of Liberty, all the
Okay. You can find me. Well, first of all, let me point out I do have a donate button, and Julianne has asked me to come to Oklahoma in August. So if anybody would like to donate to help offset the cost for that trip, there's a donate button up at the top, and you can go there. It's safe and secure. You can also find me on Facebook. You can find me on USA.life. You can find me on MeWe. You can find me on localactivist.org, which is a part of Citizens for Free Speech, and I strongly urge you to join that particular group. That's run by Patrick Wood. You can find me on Breaking News Journal TV on Roku and Amazon. There are subscriptions that are available. I think it's like $3 a month. You could go to Breaking News. So it's bnjtv.com, I believe it is. And you can also find me on Thursday mornings with Suzanne Hamner. And we are the Liberty Bells, and we are on Brighteon.
Okay. Great. Yeah. Well.
And
Yeah.
remind people your Twitter.
Oh, Twitter. Yes, Twitter is at Common Core Diva.
Okay. Good.
Well, we'll put all the. I think I have all those links or most of them.
Okay.
I'll put them into our YouTube show notes because the other platforms that we use don't necessarily allow so many characters. So
Oh, okay.
YouTube lets us put a lot in, but
Yeah.
Rockfin not so much.
Okay.
Yeah, but we'll definitely put that in there, and possibly I guess our Facebook as well.
Sure.
So yeah.
Okay.
course.
Well, thank you guys so much. It's always
Yeah.
a treat to hang out with you.
Yes,
Yeah.
we love talking to you. We learn something new every time,
Good.
and I'm so glad to hear that you are going to be going to visit Julianne in Oklahoma.
That's
I
awesome.
know.
Yeah.
We had Julianne on Pullquote a couple of weeks ago, the beginning of June, and so this is a perfect.
Mhm.
It seems perfect that the two of you would get together.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I would love to meet some others along the way. So we'll see what happens.
All right.
Yes,
That
for
sounds
sure.
great.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Until next time, take
Okay.
care.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
You too. All right. Well, that was cool.
Yeah, that was so great having
Yeah.
her back.
I know.
Third time's
time.
a charm,
I know.
right?
Well, there, like she said, I mean, there's a lot to cover just in this segment, right? That
Right.
we didn't even, probably scratch the surface.
Right.
But again, you can go to her website, look up STEM or STEAM, and just put it into the search criteria in her website, and you'll get a lot of content. I think that Lynn is pretty much foremost in this area of research.
Right, I would say so.
Yeah.
And just before we head out, we want to once again thank our patrons for all of their support. It's because of you that we can bring these guests on. It's because of you that we were able to start this new series called Pullquote, where we have a lot of great guests coming up in the future. So if you'd like to continue to support our work, we also have 3 video essays in the hopper right now. And we have a Patreon page that you can go to and see some of the work that is not available to the public.
Right.
So please go to patreon.com/book of hours, become a patron, join Rockfin, rockfin.com/book of hours. You'll have an opportunity to support our work there, and then you will have access to other people's work who are also under a paywall.
Yeah. Right.
So,
Yeah.
and then you can make a one-time donation on PayPal as well.
Right.
So, thank you for your time today. We really enjoyed talking to
Yeah,
Lynn.
for sure. And just let you know. Oh, well, yeah, we talked about this yesterday, but we have a lot of guests coming up on Pull Quote. Should I bring that up or
We're gonna
sign out now?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're good.
We're good.
We showed it
Okay.
yesterday,
Yeah,
so
we
you
did.
can go back to our bookmark podcast yesterday, and you can see all the guests that we have listed.
Right. And we'll be posting that on our Facebook page as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your continued support.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. We'll see you
Bye-bye.
next time.
Over the last year, Book of Hours has been there for you during the most challenging times of our lives. As an artist collaboration, we've given shape.
Wrong one.
Book of Hours are artists here to empower and embolden your response to the constant negative sound bites that attack your news and social media feeds. In order to continue making the video essays and art you've come to enjoy, we need your support. Make a one-time donation or become a patron. Thank you.